I'm Lee from the unofficial Universal Orlando podcast.
I'm Maddy from Rush of Fear podcast.
I'm Gabe from the Theme Park Duel podcast.
And I'm Kelly from the Taste of Universal podcast. And together we are...
the UUOP Network podcast. Each episode will bring together one member from each of the UUOP Network podcasts.
They will each discuss a recent episode of their podcast and then bring a topic for the group to discuss relevant to their own podcast.
We hope to have a different member from each team on every episode. But of course, life can get in the way.
So you may hear from some hosts more than others. Welcome to episode 1. So I hope you like those. Others you're going to hear more from. People will be listening to this podcast more because, I don't have to listen to Lee every episode. That's cool.
I don't know. As somebody who doesn't often record episodes with you, I actually like hearing your buttery smooth voice as I'm sitting here and we actually get to interact.
Tracy would have a very different opinion of that right now. She says she hears my voice far too much.
Nails on the chalkboard.
So I kind of wanted to discuss where this came from, really. And I'm going to throw you under the bus, Mr. Montoya, because this is this is something that I've had germinating in the back of my brain for quite some time. But then obviously with the network starting with Rush of Fear and Theme Park Duo and Taste of Universal, it seemed the right time, so it was brewing a little bit more. And then Gabe was like, hey, do you know what would be a good idea? Because none of us have enough going on in our lives right now.
Right.
Yeah, honestly, it really just kind of came from this idea of yes, we all are all under the same umbrella. We're all under the UUOP network umbrella. But other than maybe the intro and maybe a call out in each episode, there really isn't a lot of the connective tissue between all of our shows. And I was like, what is some way that we can kind of get together, maybe make it a bit more cohesive, tie us together, just get us to be one big solid group rather than, separate entities. And this was the idea that kind of came into my head. And clearly you and I were on the same wavelength, Lee.
As always.
Yeah, usually. There's a few things that we disagree upon.
But so jumping off of that point that you just made, Gabe, I think, we're only 6 episodes in right now of Taste of Universal, but I'm already starting to see where that mentality of groupthink can come in of the same 4 people talking about the same things, where you start to mend and mold your opinions based off of the group that you're in, whereas everybody could, where you might have different opinions to begin with, as time goes on, everybody kind of loves the same things, doesn't like the same things. And so getting people together who are kind of within that same realm, but not the people that you have these conversations with on a daily basis, I think will make me think of new things and make me question my opinions or question whether I truly love something or truly don't like something, or whether I'm just in that groupthink mentality about things. So I think it's a cool idea.
I try to check myself often, because I feel like that is something that really does happen when you're in the community of either, theme parks, HHN, Universal Orlando, Universal Hollywood, whatever it is, you tend to kind of end up kind of enveloping the opinion of the group, like you said. Mm-hmm. And I try really hard not to do that. I try to think of it independently and be like, okay, do I really actually like this? Do I have critical things to say about it? Critically, how do I want to ingest this information and try to develop something in my own brain that isn't necessarily going to vibe with everybody all the time, which if it doesn't, I usually shut the hell up and don't say anything because I don't want Twitter to come after me, or X, whatever you want to call it,
Really? Oh, I'm the exact opposite. Anyone who knows me and our show, if I have an opinion, whether anybody else likes it or not, I couldn't care less.
On the show, it's different. On the show, it's different. I'll shout it on the show anytime. But on Twitter, when people are you said you don't like bananas, how dare you hate oranges? And no matter what you say, if you say something that's negative, you're public enemy number 1. So it's just stay away.
Embrace it.
That is very true. Within the HHN community, I feel like it's very... certain things are touch and go, and then certain things are everybody is so happy about it, or on the opposite, everybody is so not happy about it. Yeah. So it is nice with our podcast. I feel like Kenneth is kind of that overall presence of I don't care what the internet says. I'm going to have my own opinions on it no matter what. So it is really nice to have him. I try not to, but when I hear Kenneth talk about things and I hear his opinions, I'm like, you know what? You're right.
Okay.
You're right, Kenneth. So for us on our podcast, he is definitely that non-biased voice that we all need, which is really great.
Having somebody to play devil's advocate is actually really important sometimes because it makes you kind of rethink things and look at things from a different perspective. And I think that's really important.
Well, okay. It would take a lot for me to change my mind on something.
Well, I'm not saying this person's going to change your mind, but at least it opens your mind to looking at it from a different perspective. That's all that matters at the end of the day. You know, sometimes you like what you like, and that's really it. You know, no one's going to change that. But at least having the discussion is important, you know, and I think that's all of us here. We're all open to having the discussion and talking about things, but ultimately someone changing our mind, that'll take a lot, you know, like someone to change my impression of Not Scary Farm. That's going to be a very difficult task.
Our podcast has got quite heated. It's not an episode that I'm going to plug, but I think it'll be out by the time this comes out. We're continuing our ultimate ride ranking at Universal Orlando with the rides at Hogsmeade.
Oh boy.
God.
There was I put it this way, 3 attractions. It took us an hour and 50 minutes to get through it. It got
Oh my God. Oh my God.
It got quite heated at one point as well. It was very interesting.
Anytime I'm listening to UUOP in the car, which, you know, because my daughter's school is maybe a mile away from me, my drive is not long. But anytime I'm listening and Lee and Tracy start to get a little heated in my car on my own, I go, fight, 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 fight. Just on my own.
It actually wasn't me and Tracy. And I will leave it at that.
Ooh, what a team.
Oh, I'm sure. And I'm sure it was Flight of the Hippogriff that you guys were debating. So.
All of them, quite honestly. Well, actually, Hagrid's was the most divisive, honestly.
I was being sarcastic, but...
Flight of the Hippogriff was funny.
We only have 2 rides in ours, so I count the bathrooms.
Yeah, and only 1 ride in your Super Nintendo world. How'd you feel about that?
It is what it is.
Aww.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. Our Universal Studios Hollywood is so unique and so different and so special because of the way that it started and the way it was built and everything, that if it means that certain aspects of our editions are going to be unique, I'm okay with that. The whole place is unique. It's so weird. And I love it.
That's an interesting thing because you talk about, like, I know from Tracy going to Universal Japan last year, she said it was really uncanny valley because there was very much parts of it that felt like she was in Orlando, the New York area. If you didn't look beyond New York, she said it felt exactly like Universal Orlando. And then even the Hollywood section as well felt very much like Orlando, but then you'd look beyond and see like this huge bridge going over the river, or like the Jurassic Park coaster in the background. Like, what the hell? Hang on, I'm not in Orlando at this point.
Yeah, I that's how I felt when I went to Walt Disney World for the first time. I was like, wait, Thunder Mountain's not over there. It's over there. And Haunted Mansion's not over there. It's over here. What's going on? Why are things backwards?
And I did the same thing with Disneyland on my first visit of like, I know where I am, but I don't know where I am at the same time.
Galaxy's Edge, I think, is the prime example of that because the Galaxy's Edges in both coasts were made to look identical. We even have like the gate that leads into your critter country. We have that gate. It's there, and then there's just nothing behind it because it's just our parking lot.
That's
so
fascinating.
You walk around Galaxy's Edge, and like even when I see pictures of Galaxy's Edge on the internet, I have to like know my park and look at the really tiny details and be like, is that mine or is that California? I find like trees and I'm like, oh yeah, it's California because we have no trees in ours.
Is it raining? Okay, it's not. It's probably California.
Well, it's like Hogsmeade. Not that I've been to Universal Hollywood, but that entrance to Hagrid's is there. There's just nothing there.
It's a wand experience where you do your little wand motion and then it sounds like there's knocking on the other door and smoke and lighting comes underneath the door. So there's something there, but it's just not a ride, sadly. Well, I guess it is a ride. It's technically Kung Fu Panda. It's something totally different.
On the other side of the wall. Yeah, I like to watch like theme park walkthrough videos, theme park nerd alert, but I'll put that on in the background when I'm doing work and things like that. But in moments like that where it's like, hold on, that looks familiar, but it's very different at the same time. And that Hogsmeade is the prime example of if I'm watching a Hollywood walkthrough of like, I recognize this, but it's different. So I can't wait to get out. I have yet to go to Universal Hollywood, but it's definitely on the bucket list one day.
Let me know when you go, because I'll definitely give you some hints and tips on like how to approach that place, because it's weird and it's different, and like the lower lot having to take like 3 or 4 escalators down to the lower lot and stuff. It's fun. It's different.
The best. I lived in California for a full summer and had like, it was back in 2016, 2017 when they had like the summer only pass for like $99. It was the best. It was the best.
Amazing. That's awesome.
It was incredible. And like where I was living, it was only like 2 trains away. So I was there almost every single weekend, which was just the absolute best. I would move there in a heartbeat just for Universal. So
that means you had to walk up that giant hill after taking 2 trains, right?
Yeah.
Oh, good God. So context, everybody. So there's not really I wouldn't even call it. Would you call it a subway, Maddy? Like it's a subway system, like a very small train/subway system in LA. And one of the exits is at the bottom of the hill of Universal Studios Hollywood. And if you walk all the way up this gigantic ass hill, there's the entrance to the park. So if you took the train there, you have to walk up that hill. There's no way around it. And unless you want to walk all the way down Lancashire, up Barham, and then through City Walk, and then all the way that way. But that's like triple the length, quadruple the length. So it's difficult. But before they built all of the construction that's going up along that hill, which I think is like part of the new Universal Studios backlot kind of parking structure and buildings and stuff, you could see into the backlot from that hill. And during construction for Super Nintendo, you could see a lot of the stuff that was going on at the time without having to go into the park, which was pretty cool. But now that's all different and stuff because of that building. So damn them.
Very rarely did they have, and I think it was in front of that one hotel that's not a Universal hotel, but it's a partner. Yeah. They had that little tram that would go up, but it was only on the weekends. And
really? I didn't know that.
I mean, during that summer.
Oh, during that summer. Yeah. Because they do have that tram, that blue one, right?
Yeah. It's very silly.
Last time we went there, we went for AP nights, and my daughter's like, saw that tram going up the hill as we were driving up that hill. She goes, "I'm going to go on the tram." I'm like, it's not the tram that you're talking about, kid. It's a different tram. She's like, "No, that's the tram with King Kong." I'm like, "No, that's not the same tram." She goes, "It is." I'm like, I'm not going to argue with a 5-year-old. I'm going to stop.
No, what you should have done is took her on it.
Hope you're happy, child. Now we're going home.
Yeah, you were right, Papa.
She wouldn't do it. She takes after Nikki. She wouldn't admit defeat and being wrong.
Fair enough.
All right, so I'm going to kick us off talking about a recent episode of our podcast, and I'm going to break the rules already because I'm going to talk about 2 because they're partner podcasts. Okay. So I wouldn't want to talk about one without the other, but we've just recently released episodes 5 and 6, which cover the food options at both Hogsmeade and Diagon Alley. Episode 5 was Hogsmeade, 6 was Diagon Alley. We did not go into the very specifically into the different beverages you can get at both sides of Wizarding World, because that's going to be its own episode talking about the exclusive, drinks and beers and all the butterbeer, things like that. But we went pretty in depth into the menus for everything from Leaky Cauldron and Three Broomsticks down to the little food carts where you can find snacks and things like that. So check those out. There was things that all 4 of us didn't even really realize because there's so many food options in Wizarding World that we had a lot that we learned from that. So even if you are seasoned in those areas of both Universal Studios and Islands of Adventure, you probably got something to learn.
Absolutely. And all I will say, awesome. If Shelby's listening, shepherd's pasty pie,
I mean, of course, you would have an opinion, right?
Because it's wrong. But anyway.
Well, it's not Shelby that's wrong, though. It's Universal.
I'm just saying it because she know I'll mention it.
Yep.
Your opinion of the quote-unquote British food at Universal Parks, I mean, it's fair. I get it. I get the perspective. As an American, don't care, tastes good, down to eat it.
Exactly.
True. It's that heavy comfort food. Oh man, am I next? This is so exciting. Okay. Well, our most recent episode was a very long episode. It was our monthly episode that we do, and we kind of crammed everything that we had missed announcement wise into it. So it was a hefty one. But we chatted the newest house announcement, the newest IP house announcement. So A Quiet Place for both Orlando and Hollywood, which we're very excited about. We also chatted about the Premium Scream Night event that's going to be happening in Orlando the day before opening night. So that was super fun. We also chatted the HHN Hollywood ticket sales, which was super fun and exciting. We were marveling at your prices compared to our prices because they are very, very different. And the things that are offered are also very different as well.
Because Hollywood stuck in 2001.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That website is so funny because it's the normal Universal website. And then you click buy tickets and it takes you to like a website from like 2023 or 2003.
It's weird.
Very funny. And we do have follow-up questions about it. So it is good that you're here, Gabe. And then we also talked about the newest details for the Universal hotels for HHN 33 in Orlando. So those multiple themed bars that we're going to have and the super themed lobbies that all of the hotels are going to have this year. So
I loved how you talked about the fact that the crappy cardboard cutouts from last year must have gone down well, which is why they're expanding it. I think they didn't go down well last year. That's why they're expanding it.
Hey, publicity is publicity. It doesn't matter if it's good or bad. People knew about it. So,
true.
Expanding upon it at this point.
I think we found like 3 of them and we're like, really, is that it?
Yeah.
Yes. And you want more? We'll give you more.
Exactly.
5 this year. Guaranteed.
Yeah. We're super interested to see if each lobby is going to be just the same theme or if it's going to be different themes per lobby.
Yeah.
Weren't there some concept art that was dropped for that as well? Because they all kind of just seemed to just be like general Halloween Horror Nights rather than anything else.
Yeah.
And that's what it looked like to me.
Yeah, from the concept drawings, there was the image of the Aventura lobby, which is going to have one of the 3 bars this year. And that one looked like it had a very neon alien theme. Oh. But then the picture for Sapphire Falls, which is not going to have one of the bars, was very like Gothic cathedral, lots of candles, like vampiric. So potentially everything will have a different theme. I think that would personally be amazing. And you'd get to do a whole hotel crawl and just bop between all of the hotels and see the different lobbies and go to the 3 different bars. So it would be genius if they did it like that. But if everything has the same theme, I'm also okay that way because decorations are decorations. It's more than we've ever had. So,
and it's such a win-win for them because you've either got Horror Nights fans that are going to make a trip to the hotels to see this kind of thing or to go do a bar crawl, like you were saying, Maddy, or you've got regular hotel guests who see like, wow, this is what Universal can do with their theming. Maybe I'll try out Horror Nights, get a one-night ticket sort of, or add that onto their trip. So I mean, it's an easy win-win for them. Whatever money they put in, they're going to make in spades from those bars especially. So.
And that's definitely something we mentioned as well. Like I used to drive the resort boats through City Walk and we would get questions all the time of, oh, is this just like a free thing that you can do? Like, do we have to pay for it? I was like, no, it's totally free. We just go from City Walk to each hotel. And they're like, so we can just go see the hotel without having a room there. And I was like, yes, please do.
Yeah.
So it opens up the possibility of people going to check out a hotel that they've never been to before and then potentially booking a room at that hotel for some other thing. So. By
the way, my face wasn't to seeing a hotel. It was the fact that I misunderstood and I thought that the guest was asking if Halloween Horror Nights was a free thing they could do. I was like,
no. It's free.
Yeah,
absolutely not. Gimme your money.
Yeah.
It's funny. I was telling Kelly earlier, I had a conversation with a work colleague of mine yesterday who goes out to Orlando quite often. And I had that proper nerd moment where she was like, oh, we're thinking about going to Halloween Horror Nights when we're over next year. How does it work? And I don't think she quite expected the response that she got.
Lee went, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my
God.
I
was like, well, there's like 50 different tickets and RIP tours and all the rest of it. And she was like, what?
This is my moment.
I was just about to say that, Maddy, my time has come.
Yeah. The rays come down. It's like an ascension. It's like,
The Podfather descends from the sky.
He just starts floating off the ground. Exactly.
But yeah, I've been calling for Universal to expand Horror Nights outside of Universal Studios Florida for a long time, and I'm glad that they finally are, because you look at the holidays as being spread out over both parks and the resort, and finally with Horror Nights with the Dead Coconut Club, and then even stuff in Voodoo Donut and the hotels. It should be. It's their biggest event like ever for the last 33 years. Why should it not be a bigger part of the resort? Because it is their identity for 2 months of the year.
I feel like when it comes to Halloween Horror Nights, it's a hard one because, while you are 1,000% correct, like that is probably one of the biggest moneymakers they have all year. It's kind of in my mind, if I'm coming from a business standpoint, it comes from this perspective of, okay, do we want to expand Halloween Horror Nights, go back to both parks, offer this much bigger event and potentially spread ourselves thin? Or do we want to condense it to one park and do these ancillary entertainment pieces like the Dead Coconut Club and like the bars at the hotels and keep the event itself what everybody is anticipating it to be and put all of our money there and focus it there so that we could create the best event possible? And if I were to choose as a fan, I would choose the latter than for them to expand and spread themselves thin.
Yeah.
Because the last thing I want is a subpar event just because they want to try to make it bigger. You know what I mean?
Yeah. 100%. Yay.
Cool.
So I'm next when it comes to our recent episode, and our most recent episode, it is a haunt episode, so along the lines of Maddy's episode, but we're not talking about Halloween Horror Nights. We're talking about Knott's Scary Farm, which is a fantastic Halloween event at Knott's Berry Farm, which is in Buena Park, California. It's the granddaddy of all haunts. It's been going on since 1973, and a lot of the different scare tactics and ideas and concepts were birthed there. Sliders, gloves, cans, all these different things that you've seen at other parks that originated there, which is really, really cool. Obviously, that's one of our favorite events of the year, and we cover a lot of Scary Farm when it does eventually come around in September and October. But one thing that I've noticed a lot of people not really focus on is really the deep-rooted involvement of the people who are making the nightmares happen. And I wanted to kind of give time and a face to those people. And we kind of started this Behind the Mask, a segment of the show where we interview scare actors from different events. And we started with Scary Farm because that's our favorite. Because I want to give a bit of humanity back to those people, because I feel like during this time of year, people show up and forget that these are people making a paycheck and doing this as a job. They become these faceless entities, monsters, and people for some reason feel emboldened to mistreat them because of that. And I, as a haunt fan, and I guarantee all three of you would agree, that me the heck off. It makes me so mad because these are human beings just trying to entertain like any other piece of entertainment, albeit one where they're breaking your personal bubble. But you're paying for that. That's what you want. So the interview is really about giving a platform to these scare actors to bring a little bit of humanity back to them and see what's behind the mask. Like, why do you want to do it? How did you get into it? What was your first haunt that you went to? Is there another haunt that you want to scare at potentially in the future that isn't Knott's Scary Farm or wherever you started? Funny stories of interactions with guests, or even the difficulties of being a monster that people don't understand. And those are things that I find tremendously entertaining because, from the perspective of a fan going to one of those events, none of that. Yeah. You absolutely see none of that. So being able to get a look behind the curtain at what it's like to be a scare actor to me is entertaining as heck.
It is. It was a really good episode. As someone who used to do a podcast very much on the same thing, like how many podcasts have I done at this point? So I used to do a podcast called Frequent Fear. It doesn't exist anymore. It's not even anywhere on the internet. But we did similar to that, Gabe, where my friend Lee, funnily enough, we talked to the people behind the events, not the scare actors themselves, but the people behind the events. So a lot of the ones from the UK. We talked to Mike Aiello, obviously about Halloween Horror Nights, which was awesome as a Universal Orlando fan. But even we did a very controversial one. We interviewed Russ McKamey, the guy behind McKamey Manor.
Oh, Jesus Christ. That's not a haunt. That guy just runs a torture factory for dog food.
It was very interesting, though, getting to speak, because I know people who went through that house, and we were very good friends with him. So talking to him, and he brought those people up, but he didn't know that we knew them. It was very interesting.
So, Kelly, I don't know if Maddy, it seems like you know what we're talking about, but Kelly, do you know what we're talking about?
I have absolutely no idea what's going on.
Context. So Russ McKamey runs a thing. I'm not going to call it a haunt because
he calls it an extreme haunt.
It's not an extreme haunt. It is a torture factory. So basically, he runs something called McKamey Manor. Its origins were fairly humble in a way where it was an extreme haunt where it had animatronics and they would throw stuff on you or make you eat stuff. Do some physical things.
No.
But overall, the original beginnings of it were very much like a backyard extreme haunt kind of a thing. But the more it progressed, the more kind of notoriety he got, the more attention, the more sadistic it became. And now it's less about being scared and more about how can I survive being beat up for 6, 7, 8 hours. And when I'm saying it's not an extreme haunt, extreme haunts to me are like Blackout, where it really pushes the boundaries, but your safety is always in check.
Yeah.
There's never a moment where your safety is ever in check jeopardized. There's always somebody watching. There's always safety measures, as extreme as it gets, which it gets very extreme. There's always safety measures. Russ makes you sign a contract that basically says you cannot chicken out. We'll take you when we want. We take you out when we want to take you out. And it doesn't cost any money because all you need is to give dog food to charity, essentially. So that's kind of a way of getting around everything. And they will shave all of your hair. They'll hit you, slap you, simulated drownings, which when I say simulated drownings, they're pushing your head underwater and keeping you there.
That's not simulated.
You eat something, if you throw it up, they'll make you eat your throw up back again. It's just it's not an extreme haunt. That is not what I consider to be a haunt in the slightest. No. And I think Russ is an absolute madman, which, Lee, to your credit, that is good. That is a controversial episode and it gets people to listen. People want to hear what this madman has to say.
I don't even know whether I still have that audio anymore.
Dude's insane, man. And he records everything and it's just super creepy and voyeuristic in the worst way. And most of the haunt community, I'd say about 95% of the haunt community has pushed him away and said, this isn't what we want. I mean, he moved from San Diego to another state to continue to do it because I think he got shut down.
He did, yeah.
So, I've been in haunts where they make you eat a bug or, fake curdled milk or fake pee or whatever it is. But I've never been in a haunt that makes you actively eat something really like a rotted egg and then makes you eat your throw up afterwards. That's too much. Yeah. It's just too much. So that's what that is. Just as a nutshell. I mean, you can look it up on YouTube and see all the nonsense there is.
I'm good. That's all I ever need to know about that. I don't,
because I have friends who went through it. And I won't mention her by name, but she didn't last very long, to be fair. Literally started freaking out within 5 minutes.
Sometimes, these people leave puffy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Very strange. That took a turn. This is what I love about this. We're all coming at things from a very different perspective. The stuff we're talking about things now that we would never talk about on our own shows. And that's what makes this different.
That was the most publicity I ever want to give Russ McKamey in my life.
Yeah. The episode of ours I want to talk about, it's not our most recent, but it's one that I loved doing, and that's our Ghostbusters at Universal Orlando episode. It was an episode that I've had festering in the back of my brain for a very long time of wanting to kind of do the opening of the Ghostbusters movie, but theme it to UUOP. So if you listen to that episode, we did the UUOP theater, we dub it, where we pretended like we were part of another podcast studio and we were getting kicked out because we were terrible podcasters and we were going podcasting on our own and start the UUOP network. And then we discussed, obviously, everything that had been at Universal Orlando, from Ghostbusters to the Spooktacular, the Street Busters shows, a show that I didn't even know existed, which was like a meet and greet Street Busters thing based on the Extreme Ghostbusters, and then obviously the Horror Nights house at 2019. But we had good friend of the show, Seth Kabursky, on, who was a Tech 5 when the Spooktacular closed down. And then Maddy, a guest I believe you guys are going to have on at some point, James Dillman, who was one of those Street Busters. Michelle's obviously not told you about it and is organising it without you. She is amazing. The story she will tell you, gold. And then...
Oh, yeah. I didn't know her name, but yes, I do know of this. Yeah.
And we also had a guy called Eric Miles on, who was Lewis Tully and Walter Peck in the Ghostbusters Spooktacular show. We got on so many tangents that weren't to do with Ghostbusters. They ended up putting the unedited interview with the pair of them as a Producers Club special, because it was just, I couldn't just cut it and leave it. It was so good, but I had to cut it for the length of the show. Anyone interested in Ghostbusters at Universal, check it out. I had so much fun doing it, and yeah, it was awesome.
Honestly, Ghostbusters is one of those weird kind of moments in time when it comes to Universal Studios that I don't feel like a lot of people know or remember. You know, the major nerds like us definitely remember those things and know about it. But if you were to tell somebody like, oh yeah, there was a Ghostbusters show at Universal Studios Florida, be like, what are you talking about? Like, I feel like Blues Brothers and I'm gonna say Madonna. Blues Brothers and Marilyn Monroe and things like that. I feel like that is like Beetlejuice. Those are things that are a given. Like, people associate those easily with Universal Studios. But Ghostbusters? So I find that to be such an interesting topic to kind of shed a little bit of light on that, especially because it's been a while. 2019 with the Halloween Horror Nights house was the first time in a long time that Ghostbusters was represented appropriately at the park.
Yeah, and then you look now, we're going to have obviously a part of the mega movie parade. There's rumours that there's a Ghostbusters show coming to the Blue Man Group Theatre, so it looks like it might be coming back, and we may have had an announcement, but it looks like there's going to be a Horror Nights house this year as well, based on the new one, so it's coming back in a big way.
I feel like Ghostbusters is one of those IPs that is kind of a forever IP. Like, it never really gets old.
No,
you know, you could transform the Ghostbusters and put them in any sort of supernatural situation, and it'll work.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't seen Frozen Empire yet, but by bringing back some of the original actors, you now have a new generation of people who will now go back and watch the original movie and the first few movies based on. You know, kind of the same way with Jurassic Park, regardless of your thoughts of the Jurassic World movies themselves or the most recent one, I bet it got a lot of younger people to go back and watch the originals that maybe hadn't before because of the inclusion of those actors specifically in that movie.
And it's very smart for Horror Nights to execute on those sorts of things, because then it brings a whole new crowd of people into Horror Nights to spend their money. It's the same thing that happened with Stranger Things. You know, Stranger Things had a very, very young crowd into it. And when they bring it to Horror Nights, that crowd comes to Horror Nights. It's inevitable. And it makes that event just go crazy. So it's really smart to execute.
Yeah, because that's what we need more of, Maddy, isn't it?
People?
Yeah.
Oh, people? Yeah, no.
Last year, I think Chris and I talked about on our show last year with Stranger Things Season 4 and then The Last of Us. Like, I don't think they've ever had two IPs at the height of their fandom as they did last year. And those crowds told you exactly how high they were in people's minds last year, because it was crazy.
Here's my perspective on that, because like, that's really hard, because, you know, as fans, we want to go, we want to enjoy the event. And if there's a lot of people, it's hard to. But in the long run, if we're talking long run of Halloween Horror Nights, these moments are extremely good for the event.
Yeah.
Because they make so much more money. And then if they make so much more money, then they could do other things and even experiment with things that maybe that aren't the typical for Horror Nights to do. And that inevitably leads to us fans being happy, because, you know, we're getting more content, we're getting more experiences, we're getting different experiences that they're willing to experiment on. And I think that although in the moment it's frustrating, because you want to go and you want to experience things and just have fun, and you can't when it's uber crowded, just go to the premium Scream night. No, it's in the long run, it's good because you're going to get cool things.
Yeah. 2019, I think, did really change the event in the sense that first Stranger Things, it brought such a younger crowd to Horror Nights.
2019 was the second one. 2019 was the second Stranger Things.
Was it 2018 that was the first one?
Because we
you're
were at
right.
2019. It was 2 and 3 that year.
But 2018 really did change Horror Nights because it did bring that younger crowd. And now you just have Horror Nights fans in a younger generation because they went in 2018 for the thing that is advertised to their age group. And now they really enjoy the event. So they're just going to keep going and going and going and going. And, you know, we did bring Stranger Things back for multiple different seasons. And now we're bringing other IPs that are in our current conscious collective, like A Quiet Place. You know, we have that new movie coming out. It has very popular current actors in it that this younger crowd likes. So they're going to go, they're going to see the house, they're going to watch those 2 original movies because they want to see Joseph Quinn in the 3rd movie. So it's very interesting. And like only having gone since 27, to only get 1 year prior to the Stranger Things era is funny. And I don't remember a lot of it. You know, we only had like The Shining and Saw and the American
your
Horror
first
Story.
year was my first year actually for Horror Nights Orlando. That's great.
Yeah, it was I loved it. It was a great year. But it was a different crowd. Like American Horror Story is not advertised to younger kids like Stranger Things is. So you didn't have that crowd. But then Stranger Things came the very next year, and it was like, okay. You know, just have a bunch of 12-year-olds running around because they've watched Stranger Things because it's a show for them, but also for us. Yeah. And they're here to enjoy the event. So I will
say that I nearly pooped myself inside the American Horror Story house.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it got me really good. And here's the thing, though, is that from somebody who's coming from Universal Studios Hollywood, our scare tactics are very, very different. And something that all of you 3 are probably used to at this point are the different scare tactics that they have over there. And one of the things that they have there that we don't have here is those mirror scares, where it looks like you're looking through something, but it's really the reflection of what's in front of it. So I wasn't used to that. So when we went through that scene in American Horror Story where they're having that musical moment where they're all kind of dancing in the open like room, this dude popped out of nowhere, and I don't think I've ever screamed louder than that because I screamed. So for context, whenever you got me good, I scream the F word the loudest that you possibly can yell it. It's just such a like instinctual reaction for me. It isn't like I'm like, I'm gonna be funny and yell a curse word. Like, no, it is such a gut reaction for me. Like, so anytime somebody gets me to do that, you actually really got me. So like, I feel like the guy smirked because I yelled so loud.
I'm so jealous of you guys.
It was so good. I loved it.
It's such a good scare. Any house that has mirror scare, I think, is just an A+ house. Like, you can't get better than that. And when I was a scare actor back in HHN 29, the house I did the most was the Nightingales. And it was so fun. I loved it. But my very first time being in that house as a scare actor, I was the mirror scare in that house.
Nice.
And so to see the reactions, and it was a double mirror scare. So it was me, and then as one of the Nightingale murder chicken things. And then I had a gladiator next to me. And so in the mirror that the guests were seeing, they could see both of us, but then one of us would step away and the other one would scare. And then there was like a second hole on the other side of the mirror that one of us, whoever didn't pop out and get the guest first, would pop on the back side of the mirror and get the guest on the other side. And the reaction to that scare versus the other ones that I did in the house later on in the event were just so vastly different, because it's such, you're not expecting it, and you know, you're not training your eyes to look at it as a mirror. You're just kind of, you're walking through the house trying to, you know, go the right direction, and all of a sudden you're like, oh cool, they're over there, and then suddenly they're like right in your face. It's so fun.
I'm so jealous of you guys. If any, Kelly, I know you've been through a house with me. Maddy, I don't know. Yeah, of course we have. We did The Last of Us last year. I don't get scared at all. And so when I get to go through with someone who does get scared, Kelly, I got the pleasure. So Gabe, you were like, I'm sure you 3 all know this. No, last year was Kelly's first year at Horror Nights.
Oh, geez.
And I got to go through Kelly's first house with her. Literally walked into the park after getting off a plane like an hour before, straight to the back of the park doing Dr. Oddfellows. I actually clipped the audio of Kelly's reaction to that house at the end of whichever episode it was that I did while we were over there. She was in tears.
Oh, no.
Poor Kelly.
I wasn't like sobbing.
You were crying. There was tears. There was a stuffy nose going on. You actually said to me at one point, "I hate you." Because I slowed down. I was being I slowed down because she was behind me. So I slowed down.
What I will say is that when it comes to new experiences, I could definitely get scared. But when it comes to things that I'm totally used to, like Scary Farm Horror Nights or anything, even if it's a new IP, I usually don't get scared at all. Like, ever. Like, I'm a jaded haunt goer out here. But when I have new types of scares, it makes it totally different and fresh, which is great. And I appreciate that because I want to get scared. And usually I'm in your boat. I'm vicariously living through other guests getting scared because I don't get scared. It's so rare. So rare. So, that one mirror scare was the best highlight of that trip because I actually got genuinely startled and I loved it. It was the best. But usually I'm left laughing at other people. So, yeah.
Kelly, for that to be your first house ever.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Was that a good house or was it like really genuinely intense?
It was a good house.
Clowns to me are always scary. Like Jack is cool, but clowns are scary. And that house was all about Oddfellow and then like Jack in their original story. So it was circusy and it was tight spaces and you're pushing through clothes and it was a good one.
That's one thing with Horror Nights in Orlando that
awesome.
I feel they don't do here in Hollywood is that a lot of the houses feel extremely claustrophobic, like really claustrophobic. And when I went in 27, I remember Scarecrow the Reaping being incredibly claustrophobic. And then walking through dark corridors and then hearing like a pig squeal, like trigger noise, it was pretty intense. And I liked it. We had it out here in Hollywood eventually. It wasn't the same. But it was one of the best houses Hollywood has ever done. And especially that year, it was incredibly well done. But yeah, the claustrophobic nature of some of the Orlando houses is pretty astounding.
See, I find it weird that you say that because I genuinely suffer from claustrophobia quite badly. And I never feel claustrophobic in those houses.
Oh.
Interesting.
Oh, I do.
And
I don't like when stuff touches my body and so the things hanging down and the curtains and the sleeping bags and all the stuff. Like, I didn't expect that. Like, I feel like I haven't heard people talk about that a lot.
Safe.
So that like got me.
It's a huge part of Horror Nights.
I was prepared for it to be loud. I was prepared for it to go from quiet to loud. I was prepared to smell things in random houses and things like that. But I was not prepared to be pushing through sleeping bags and then a bear pop out and then I ran into a wall. But like that got like that sense being triggered at the same time. Like I was in such sensory overload, especially the night we did Express. But
that's so funny because the SIF, the stuff in face, I feel like has definitely lessened, at least in Hollywood or in Orlando since COVID. Last year, it definitely did come back a lot more, like the sleeping bags and all of that in the Yeti house. That is where the sleeping bags were. But pre-COVID, that was like the thing. Because if you're worried about like pushing through all this stuff, you're not paying attention to the scare actors that are in the hallway or behind the hallway of the stuff that you're pushing through. So like you would have to push through like bodies hanging from the ceiling or like giant pieces of meat hanging from the ceiling or just like other stuff that's like in your face, because if you're focused on this, you're not focused on this.
Yes.
Yeah,
so,
that never went away in Hollywood or here at Not Scary Farm. Like going through closets with clothes hanging down and you have to like push it open with your hands and there's a monster right on the other side or something.
See,
those absolutely never went away. And Lee, just to your point, you were talking about not being claustrophobic and not feeling it. I think it comes down to, and this is just my potential understanding of it, is like you have in your head an experience of what a haunted house is going to be. So you already know that it's going to be tight spaces. So for you, who's someone who suffers with claustrophobic environments, It's like, okay, you're prepping yourself mentally. Okay, this is what it's going to be like. But for somebody who doesn't and not expecting it to be as tight as it was, for us, I think maybe it's like we're just not expecting that while you're prepping your head for it.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, I will transition us then to bringing up a topic for everybody to discuss. And I want to relate mine back to the episodes that I plugged at the beginning and just talk about the food in Wizarding World in general. Your guys, I feel like we have a good different perspective of Lee actually knowing what British food is supposed to look like and taste like and be called maybe in certain cases. And then Gabe bringing the perspective of what might be the same or what might be different from California. And then Maddy going all the time. And I have food allergies. So just even when we were talking, the four of us on Taste of Universal, just about the food, there's so many options. And yet a lot of us haven't tried a lot of things, even if there are a lot of dairy-free options that I could have, but I haven't tried very much of it. Just thinking through that it's often heavy food, it's a little bit pricier, like things like that. Like there's things that, Maddy, you even said it earlier, it's more like comfort food than your standard theme park fare. And I don't know if I want like mashed potatoes or like a pie with seafood in it when it's 412 degrees outside. And I'm about to go get on a roller coaster.
Going off that's a very British thing, though. Heavy food like that, fish and chips and pie and mash and all that sort of stuff is a very British thing.
Which makes sense, but and I love the theming. It fits perfectly into Wizarding World. It would be weird if they had like a hot dog or chicken fingers or things like that as their like main food. Like it wouldn't, everything else is so well themed, down to the bathrooms and the park benches and things like that, it would be a very much so take you out of place if the food was not traditional or so, quote unquote traditional.
Quote unquote traditional.
Yeah. But it's also just not even, no matter whether I'm thinking about islands or studios, I don't immediately go to Wizarding World when it comes to what am I going to have for lunch? What am I going to have for dinner? Breakfast, yes, because there are really no other options. And snacks, yes. Like I think about like, oh, I'll go get a pumpkin juice or I'm going to go get a Wizard's brew or something like that. But I am not thinking like I want to go get a pie for lunch. And so I just want to
that's because you're not British. Pies are a staple over here for any time of the day.
I mean, they taste great.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. But again, going back to, I'm going to go like sweat my butt off in the line for Hagrid's after this. Like what do I want for lunch? It's not something super heavy. So just kind of wanted to see what you guys, like your experiences with it. If you have favorite dishes or something that you get all the time, or just like what your perspectives are on that.
I have to look at the menu because I haven't been to either one of those in such a long time.
When it comes to Universal Studios Hollywood, honestly, I say this with a lot of respect. There aren't a ton of like huge standout places to eat. There is Toadstool Cafe, which has a lot of good food. That's one of them. And I think that another one of them is, well, actually the One Up Cafe is also Super Nintendo related, not in the actual land, but still connected via theme. But Hogsmeade is one of the only other places that I feel like are huge stand-up places. Everything else is fine, There is good food. It's just, for me, those two locations are the ones that stand out the most. Now that Doc Brown's Fried Chicken is gone, just saying, not as many places to eat that I like. But Hogsmeade is actually one of those places, as people who don't have allergies, is one of those places that I go to go eat often because we like the food there. We could count on it. We know what it's going to be. It's consistent. And that's why we often go there. So we have like a little seat that we like sitting at that we could see Hogwarts. I'll usually get Bangers Mash. What the Americanized version of Bangers and Mash is, Lee. So chill your beans.
No. To be fair, that's a pretty authentic version of it. Your mashed potatoes a bit crappy, but all right.
And then Nikki gets the fish and chips. Like that's our go-to. That's what we like. Recently, we've been going to the One Up Cafe, though.
I do have an issue with the fish and chips because you generally serve it with wedges, not chips. And then you guys call them wedge fries. It's like a wedge is a wedge and a fry is a fry. A wedge fry doesn't exist.
I guess. I don't know. It's America. What are you going to do?
I know. This is where I get to come into my own.
Recently, we've been going to the One Up Cafe because we really like their calzones. The calzones are like $13, $14, which is a little bit expensive, but they're hefty. Like they're really hearty and they taste fantastic. So Nikki and I can easily share one of those and that'll sustain us for a good long time.
I find that hilarious that you've just said you can get a calzone at Universal Studios Hollywood. I haven't had a chance to bring this up on our podcast yet, right? There is an E.T. cupcake in the Tribute store. A cupcake, E.T., that is $18.
What? Wait, is that the one that Matt from Theme Park Bar shoved in his whole entire mouth at once?
It looks like E.T. in a basket on the top of the cupcake. It is $18.
Yeah.
There's a picture of him shoving that entire thing in his mouth all at one time.
Yeah. I did find it funny listening to Taste of Universal where you guys were talking about the Plowmans and had no idea what it was. And it was like such this weird, from an American point of view, this weird salad thing. A Plowmans is such a staple over here. I actually had the Plowmans at the Leaky Cauldron. It's pretty good. But I need to bring up the shepherd's pasty pie. Let me get this right. It doesn't make sense because it's a pasty, not a pie. Shepherd's pie is, as we know, lamb with gravy and mashed potato on the top of it. Sure, shepherd's pie. In a pasty, it should be a shepherd's pie pasty, not a shepherd's pasty pie.
And then also, isn't it ground beef?
It doesn't. Is it? Then it's not because shepherd's.
It's not a shepherd's pie.
So shepherd's pie is lamb. Yeah. Cottage pie is beef.
Cottage pie. Yeah.
And forager's pie is vegetables. But it's still not.
That's the reason I brought it up. I knew you would know. I couldn't remember the name cottage pie, but I was like, I'm pretty sure if it's ground beef, it's not considered a shepherd's pie.
No, because it's
I'm
lamb.
looking at the menu right now. The cottage pie is a savory combination of beef and chunky vegetables and a potato crust with a salad.
Yep.
And then the shepherd's pasty pie is meatless beef crumbles, vegetable stew, hand pie.
Yeah, that one's
So it's not even.
Yeah.
It doesn't got any meat
even
in it.
less.
Well,
even less of a shepherd's pie.
That's why Shelby always brings it up, is because it's one of the few vegan options anywhere in Wizarding World.
It's fantastic to have those options. I'm just merely making fun of the fact that we were just talking about the specificity between shepherds and cottage, and then we ended up being both wrong because it had none of it.
Yes.
but like a pasty is supposed to be like a handheld little.
Yes.
It's a little guy, and you hold it in your hand.
It looks like a half moon. That's a pasty,
Maddy, how do
as
you eat
opposed to a pie.
No.
But it's the fact that they've called it shepherd's pie. So it's shepherd's pie and a pasty. Therefore, it should be shepherd's pie pasty, not shepherd's pasty pie, because it's not a pie.
So yours is the where the words are falling in the description of it.
It's wrong.
Okay, got it.
Yeah,
it drives me up the wall.
I will say, though, Kelly, you were talking about the breakfast. The breakfast at Leaky Cauldron is so good. And, like, it's one of the only breakfast areas that you can go to in Universal. But it's a good amount of food. And you get to try, like, there's the English and then there's the American. Both are delicious. Obviously, we are missing a couple of things on, like, the English breakfast platter that I'm sure you would have. I'm pointing up because that's where you are.
Okay.
That way, general that way.
But it's good. If I can make it to Universal for breakfast, that is where I will go. And you also get a butterbeer with your breakfast.
Yes.
Like it comes as part of the combo. Oh, it's so good.
I don't know how I feel about that. I like butterbeer.
You don't have to get butterbeer.
You don't have to.
It's an option.
Yeah.
If it were hot butterbeer in the morning, I'll do that.
I think you can.
Yeah, I think that's one of the choices
I think you can.
for it. Yeah. It's a great deal because the butterbeer itself is expensive.
Yeah.
So it's a great deal getting it with the combo.
See, that's when you sneak in a small bottle of cinnamon whiskey and pour that into your hot butterbeer, and then your morning's going to be extra good.
Okay. Yeah, the breakfast's not bad. The fact that it still has the black pudding on it, or blood pudding as you guys for some reason call it, is a big deal because I feel a lot of Americans like blood pudding.
I've never had it. I also didn't know that Americans call it blood pudding. I thought everyone just called it black pudding.
No,
that's what I call it.
Most of the people I've heard in America refer to it as blood pudding, whereas we call it black pudding.
Yeah.
Interesting. I don't know.
At the first weekender, Darren was with us, who used to be on UUOP, and I got him to try it for the first time, and he got halfway through and was like, I quite like it. And then by the end, he was like, yeah, no. It's very much an acquired taste.
It's an acquired taste.
It really is, yes.
Is it one of those things where, like, after a while, it just feels like you're sucking on a handful of pennies because it's made out of blood, or is that kind of flavor out of it?
No, I don't think you taste. It's just it's hard to explain. It's very odd. I only like small portions of it.
Baked beans for breakfast, though, I don't know why we don't do that. I loved baked beans.
Actually, you're not wrong. I feel like baked beans with like a sunny side up egg or a fried egg sounds like super good.
Right.
On toast? Oh, it's so good.
Baked beans over here are a staple.
I'm so hungry.
You can have it with anything.
But I just want to preface this. This is kind of somewhat not preface, but I want to say this, and it's somewhat off topic. British bacon is not bacon. Sorry, you're wrong. It is not. It is. You are so ungodly wrong.
Because you burn it effectively. Ours is proper.
No, we
bacon.
make it crispy.
No,
yours is just
burn it.
ham.
No, it's
just
not.
ham.
No, it's not.
It's thin ham.
No, it's not. It's bacon. It's just you
Who
burn
wants
it
a
to
little
a
floppy
crisp.
thing? I don't want this little floppy thing, Lee.
I don't know where to go with that statement.
Goodness. But to your point, Kelly, it is very heavy food. And I think the draw for people who like come as an actual like vacation and they're not just locals will tend to go to the 2 Harry Potter restaurants if possible, because it's Harry Potter. It's very fun and exciting. You know,
Exactly.
It's the most themed food that you can get inside Universal that's quick service. But as far as I think the locals, it's more for like a once in a blue moon kind of thing, or like when I went over to Hollywood, we got the Great Feast because why not?
Because it's
like,
good value.
you know,
Probably save a bit of money going that way anyway.
It's a really good. Yeah, that's a really good deal too.
Yeah, but it is incredibly heavy food, and I feel like most locals will steer away from it. And it's usually a really long line.
And that incredibly heavy food is the reason why 3D was taken off of Forbidden Journey, probably. Because everybody would yak it all up.
Yeah.
My biggest issue with both of those, and Maddy, I think we both mentioned it when you were on UUOP recently, is both of those restaurants absolutely stink of fish.
Yeah. They're very smelly.
Oh, it's horrible.
I don't know. I mean, they sell fish, like they make fish, but like you don't walk past Lombards where they're making only seafood and fish and smell that smell. So I
would argue at that point. I think Lombards is stinky too, but
I've never noticed it, and I've been inside Lombards a few times. I've not noticed that it doesn't smell anywhere near as bad as the Three Broomsticks does.
So my nose is broken, so everything smells fine to me.
Even going into Hog's Head for a Butterbeer, you're like, oh my God, it stinks in here.
Yeah. Three Broomsticks, I think, is, as far as back to the point about the food itself, Three Broomsticks is a little bit lighter than Leaky Cauldron. Leaky Cauldron is like straight up comfort food where you've got the like the spare ribs and the smoked chicken and things like that at Three Broomsticks. I think they share a kitchen with or a lot of the food is prepped for both. Or it's a lot. Let me try that again. It's a lot of the same food at Three Broomsticks as you can get at Thunder Falls Terrace. As far as the ribs and the chicken, rotisserie chicken and things like that. So it's a little bit lighter in that way. But Three Broomsticks, it's just like I'd rather eat at Minions, or I'd rather eat at Cafe La Bamba if it's open. Like there are places that I'd rather eat there when I, for being as big of a Potter nerd as I am, I don't eat very often in either side of the wizarding world. So just, we had that realization that all 4 of us on Taste of Universal kind of had that, like, we feel bad. We feel like bad Universal food podcasters because we haven't eaten any, we've barely touched this menu as far as our favorite things. So kind of wanted to hear what you guys thought about that too.
I was going to ask a very stupid question and go, is your Hogsmeade open during Horror Nights? Because I forgot
it's in the wrong park.
Is in Islands of Adventure rather than in Universal Studios Florida, because ours is in our Universal Studios Hollywood, which is the only one there. But you do have Diagon Alley, which is open during Horror Nights because I went in during Horror Nights, which I guarantee you that area is probably fairly crowded during Horror Nights. For people who only go during Horror Nights, probably going there all the time.
I didn't think so.
Yeah, it's usually like, for me, it's a respite area. At least pre-Death Eaters, it was a respite area. With the bringing the Death Eaters over for our Horror Nights, it has gotten just a little bit busier. But like back in like 28, 29, when I was going as a guest, that would be my little like air conditioning area. Just sit for a second, drink a butter beer, charge my phone. Okay, then go back out into the rest of the park. But with the bringing of the Death Eaters to Horror Nights, it has gotten just a little bit busier.
Yeah. It was the very chill I like came back to life in Diagon Alley last year. Madeline like force fed me some vegan churros as I was like curled in a ball on a bench, and I came back to life in that area. And the Death Eaters were really cool, and they pumped in the fog with they had these like green laser lights that made everything. That was really cool.
We missed them twice.
Honestly, when it comes to Horror Nights bringing the Death Eaters, I feel like it was just an inevitability. It felt like something that fits the event so well. Yeah. And I feel like it's something that fans have been clamoring for a very long time. So I like the Death Eaters. In Hollywood, it gets so insanely crowded over there. Because I think differently than Orlando, ours wasn't open for a very long time. And then they finally opened it because you have to go through it to get to two of the houses that are built behind one of the parking structures. So then they put the Death Eaters in, and then it just became an absolute madhouse throughout the night, which, it is what it is. But also we're, as pass holders, not going to go into Hogsmeade that often during Horror Nights anyway. We spend our time there. But in terms of like the IP versus originals when it comes to Horror Nights, I know that Orlando has always been like a split of like originals and IP, and people like fans like you guys who are like hardcore fans are like the originals a lot. From a Hollywood perspective, somebody out here in California, I'm not used to that often. Hollywood has always been a place for IPs, and slowly but surely throughout the years, they've kind of incorporated and sprinkled out their own little originals here and there. So, and then this year, I think it's the first time that we've seen a Hollywood IP move to Orlando. Is it not? Is this the first time?
I think it might be.
Yeah. So, I mean, unless you guys had a La Llorona house, which I don't think you have.
Oh, yes. No.
It did, didn't
That's
it?
the only other one that I could think of potentially, but I don't think you ever have. But a lot of the Hispanic origins kind of houses are very much SoCal based. You know what I mean? Like those are innately SoCal. How do you guys feel about a Hollywood original coming to you and just being a completely different product? Because Hollywood originals are very different than Orlando originals. And are you excited about getting something that was highly sought after last year and getting it transformed by the creative team over in Orlando?
So let me just jump in. La Llorona was at Halloween Horror Nights 23.
Oh, see, there you go. So it's the second time then. So at least I caught myself.
Yeah. I thought it rang a bell. So it's obviously why you didn't catch it, Maddy, because it's before your time.
It was before my time. We haven't made it there in the history episodes yet.
Yeah.
I'll let you guys start on that while I take a bathroom break, because I have fewer words to say than everybody else.
Fair. I am so excited. I have a couple of friends still over in California that I met that summer that I lived there, and that was their favorite house, the Monstros, like the Monsters of Latin America. That was the house they talked about the most. And as someone who is not like, I don't know much about, the cultures of Latin America, just because it's not something that I ever had contacts with. I am so excited. And when we were doing that episode talking about that original house, I had never heard of these myths before. I had never heard of these monsters before. And I'm going to assume that there's a lot of fans of HHN on this side of the country who also don't know or even know that it was a Halloween Horror Nights Hollywood house. So the fact that it's coming over here is great. And I'm hoping to see a bit more movement from Hollywood to Orlando if this goes over well, because y'all have had some amazing houses that I want here.
I would make the huge argument that Hollywood excels when they are doing their original houses. I think they do well with IP houses. I think they have hits every now and again. I think they are done in a way that accurately represents the intellectual property, the IP. But I feel like creatively, when they are let off the leash, the IP leash, and are able to do whatever they want with the creative idea, that is when those houses are just so incredibly good. And I can make the argument that literally going down the line of originals that they've done have all been stellar, starting from La Llorona, then going to Pandora's Box, going to the very first Universal Monsters house, which I kind of don't really consider an IP because it's part of Universal.
It's an IP.
I know it's an IP, but I consider it an original because they're doing an original take on these things. It's not a straight representation from the original films, black and white films, to a haunted house. They redesigned them, changed the stories. They've done a lot of different things. So I kind of consider it original. It's like, would you consider it an IP if they took Ghostbusters and changed it completely?
As long as it's Ghostbusters, yeah.
I guess so. That's a bad example. That's a really bad example. That's my own fault. But like even from that to Bride of Frankenstein to El Cucuy, the Boogeyman to Monstros, all their originals have been just so good in my opinion. So being able to see them excel is so much fun as a fan, and it's interesting because as originals go, I'm used to that being a Not Scary Farm thing, a Six Flags Fright Fest thing, a Queen Mary's Dark Harbor thing, not a Halloween Horror Nights thing. And to see them delve more into it year after year after year makes me really excited because they do really well.
Yeah, it's interesting from my point of view because obviously I'm the only one on this call that'll have been to Halloween Horror Nights when it was all entirely original houses. And it's so weird now to think back. It was 20 years ago. I don't remember a lot about it. But going back to like that original idea of Horror Nights where there were no IPs, they may have dabbled in things that were inspired by a particular IP, but for it to be completely original. So I think Universal Orlando obviously come from a very different perspective because they've always done originals and then added the IPs and have gone along, whereas I feel like Hollywood was more IP based and then they've dabbled in originals. So I don't have an issue. Tracy and I actually watched the walkthrough of Monstros last year and it looked amazing because I heard a lot of the complaints of Halloween Horror Nights Hollywood houses aren't as...
Say that 4 times fast, man. Halloween Horror Nights Hollywood.
Yeah, Horror Nights houses. Yeah.
A lot of H words.
Aren't as well themed from top to bottom as Orlando's are. And yet I felt Monstros was very specifically. It felt like an Orlando house, quite honestly. So seeing that in Orlando, and especially, I hope it's not... See, I would like to see... So I have no issue with them bringing things over from Hollywood, but I'd like to see Orlando's take on that rather than porting it exactly as it is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think they would. I think they would change it to what their taste is and what their style is, because even the other way around, when Scarecrow the Reaping came over to Hollywood, it was nothing like the one in Orlando that I went through at 27. Mm-hmm. Absolutely top to bottom different, other than the fact that there were scarecrows and some of the aesthetic choices were similar. But other than that, the scares were completely different. And honestly, that year, that was probably one of the strongest mazes Halloween Horror Nights had in Hollywood. And like you were talking about, Lee, I feel like, yeah, it is a bit odd sometimes the top to bottom how do I want to politely say this in a way that's not going to be taking me off the media list? It's not always set dress from beginning to end.
Yeah.
It's not always that way. Scarecrow the Reaping was. From beginning to end, you were completely encased and it's themed. And I thought that was just absolutely incredible. I think it comes down to budget too.
Of course.
We're a smaller park, less things. Orlando's absolutely massive, so they have a much bigger budget, so we have less to work with.
Yep.
But it does become noticeable, and it seems like they're addressing that issue, sporadically throughout year after year.
Yeah.
You also have a lot less space.
Significantly less space. I mean, what's interesting about us being a working studio is the fact that if we want to have a maze inside one of the sound studios, the park has to work with the lot. they aren't the same entity. They work as two separate hands of the same company. So they actually have to rent out that space in order to do that. So having a house like Stranger Things or Stranger Things, or even The Weeknd being inside one of the sound stages is unique and different. I mean, it doesn't happen every single year. Sometimes the maze has to be put over where they work on the trams. I think Get Out. Was it Get Out? No, Us was across the way from the tram. So a lot of the line was in the tram line, for it. And you had to walk across the tram road to get to it, or behind the parking lot structures and stuff. So it's interesting where they choose to put stuff year after year. As a Hollywood fan, you're always like, okay, where are they going to put the next one? Yeah. Where's it going to go? Mm-hmm. And they always find a really interesting place to put it.
Yay.
Kelly, were you going to say something?
I don't remember what I was originally going to say, but I will say that kind of back to your original I remember what I was going to say. Sorry. Gabe, I was going to ask if Horror Nights there takes place. Is it both lots or just one?
Yeah. So are you talking about like upper lot, bottom lot, or lower lot? So it's
I'm so good at podcasting because I'm showing you things with my hands that you can't see.
Is it here or here or here or here or there or here? So it is park wide, although one of my biggest critiques of Halloween Horror Nights Hollywood is the fact that the scare zones are not park wide. So you do have to traverse the park to get to the different houses, but scare zones are fairly, scattered, which to me is a big bummer. You have your entrance scare zone, then you have a scare zone in the Hollywood section, and then you have a scare zone sometimes like there's a scare zone in Hogsmeade. There used to be two other ones, but now one during what is now Pet's Place, and then the French Street. But now Pet's Place doesn't have a scare zone, obviously. And then the French Street one is kind of like an exit scare zone from the house that leads out there. And recently they've been allowing people to walk through, but it's fairly scattered. So yes, it's a complicated answer in the fact that yes, every maze is throughout the entire park, but scare zones are not everywhere.
Cool.
Yeah. I mean, going back just quickly, it's like I was a huge fan of Chupacabra at 2022. Maddy, I don't know. A lot of people didn't seem to like it, but we loved it.
I don't know why. It was such a good house. Yeah. I loved it.
And so seeing Orlando's take on Monstros, which is very much in that same vein, I'm very disappointed I'm not going to get to see it this year.
It's going to be really cool. I'm so excited. And I really hope, I don't remember which monster it is, but I remember watching walkthroughs of Hollywood, and there's that big bird animatronic. I hope we get something like that, because I think it would be really, really neat.
I mean, if we don't bring ours back, which I don't think ours is coming back, I mean, I don't know why they wouldn't just pick it up and send it to you guys. I mean, realistically, because to my knowledge, we're getting a totally different, and this is just rumor based. The South American house that we're going to have this year potentially is going to be a completely different theme. To my knowledge, the scare zone attached to it is going to be a lucha libre scare zone.
What?
Like monster lucha libres. That's the rumor currently. So we'll see if that's attached to the house in any sort of way. Who knows? I mean, that's pretty cool. But if it's not Monstros here, ship it off to you guys.
Yeah. And that's something that we've definitely talked about on Rush of Fear, and that I have talked about in my own life as well. I think that even within the United States, every state has its own myths about like cryptids and creatures and yada, yada. So there's so much to pull from just within the states inside the United States, but also branching out. There's so many cryptids and myths that you could pull from all across the country or all across the globe. And to potentially start having those types of houses like Chupacabra, like Monstros, it's just going to open up another entire world of possibilities, very similar to our Universal Monsters house, where it's, there's so many Universal Monsters. Which combination and mixture are we going to create into a house this year? So I'm excited to see hopefully more of those moving forward. Praying for a Mothman house one of these days, because I think that would be so much fun. But
I was just about to say Mothman or those ghosts that look like white pants that just walk.
Yeah. I'm surprised they've never gone down the route of like historical things. So like a Jack the Ripper or a Sawney Bean or those, a Dick Turpin, that's like a British sort of, I'm surprised Jack the Ripper house would be amazing. Can you imagine going through a Horror Nights
Scary
house?
Farm has.
But it would be like with Horror Nights theme, it's like 18th century London. It would be so cool.
It would be really, really cool.
Yeah, especially with their budget.
Yeah, exactly. It would be awesome.
Well, even more just like historical events. I mean, there are some things that are very touchy, but I would love some sort of house relating to like the American Revolution. I don't know, that like zombie American Revolution or like vampire American Revolution. I know that the original Nightingale's house was I don't think it wasn't Civil War, but it was.
Wasn't it Gladiators? No, I think you're thinking. You're thinking of.
Because there's been 2 Nightingale's houses.
Yeah,
the one that I was in was Gladiators, but the original one was some wartime.
No,
I just don't remember.
Oh no, you're right. 21. It was Halloween Horror Nights 21. I can tell you that much because it was the first year we started covering it on UUOP.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like World War II, I think.
Yeah.
In the
what
trenches.
Would be
it was done in the
dullest
trenches.
historical event to become a house? The signing of the Declaration of Independence. Oh God, he's using a quill.
They're all zombies.
I can tell you now, Halloween Horror Nights 40, COVID 2020.
No thanks. Too soon.
Okay.
Too soon?
All right, let's pivot.
It's
from
just
that.
people coughing in your face.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
Terrifying.
yeah.
Absolutely terrifying.
So, as someone who doesn't really watch scary movies, like IP houses, like I watch Stranger Things, I watch Last of Us, but like I don't really care. Like I don't get as much out of an IP house because most likely I haven't seen the source material. And if I've seen it, I don't really care about it. And I absolutely haven't seen it like a million times. And, really am like, it's Freddy or Jason, which is about the extent of my knowledge of scary movie bad guys. But the original houses, I'm learning that story at the same time as everyone around me. So whereas if I go through an IP house that I don't know the movie very well, or I don't know the property, everyone's like, whoa, did you see that? That was so cool. That was from blah, blah, blah. I have no idea. Like it was just one more thing that scared me and made me scream. But going through an original house where everyone has no idea what's coming or, things like that I enjoy is a strong word.
Appreciate.
Yes, thank you. I appreciated a lot out of the original houses last year that I did not expect to care so much about.
I completely agree, actually. Like, I'm wholeheartedly agreeing with you there. It's like I go into an IP house, excited to see the translation from screen to house or maze form, but ultimately the ones that are going to be the most intense for me because I know nothing about it are the originals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yay. Well, I was going to talk about Horror Nights, but we've done a lot of that. So I have changed my discussion topic. Every time my fiance and I go to Universal, and specifically when we walk through Toon Lagoon, we always say to ourselves, oh man, like if only this was something else. And we always try and come up with ideas about what could go in this area, or, oh, there's an empty theater that's sitting there. What could go in that theater? Or, like this ride is just meh, and everyone thinks it's meh. So like what could replace that area that would be cool? What I want to open up that kind of topic within your parks, whether it's Hollywood or Orlando. What ride or empty theater or area do you think could have a different theme, and what theme do you think that would be, like in your wish list?
That's a good question.
Because I have
a really good question.
We talked a little bit about this on UUOP when you were on, didn't we, Maddy?
We did, yeah.
Dang it. Now I have to think about this.
Because you've got to give Kenneth the shout out at SpongeBob SquarePants. Kenneth, listening to this, be like, if you don't mention SpongeBob SquarePants, I will never, ever go on a podcast with anyone ever again.
I think that would be a great thing to put into Toon Lagoon. Lindsay would really love to take out just the water in general, and she wants a Back to the Future area. So like a hill valley, just land. And whether you bring back the original ride, or she really, really wants the Back to the Future Broadway show in that Toon Lagoon theater. She thinks that would be very fun, and I personally agree. If I had my way, Toon Lagoon, because we both hate Toon Lagoon. Like, it's just, it's not, it's cute. It was fun when I was younger, and I really enjoyed water rides. But now that I'm older and the younger generations don't really know newspaper comics, I feel like there's not a lot of, like, yay water rides, but at the same time they're just going on the water ride because it's a water ride, not because they like Ripsaw, like they like these
Dudley
characters.
Do, right? Oh yeah.
So me personally, as a Waterworld girly, I want a Waterworld area.
So one, love that idea, because Waterworld is fantastic out here in Hollywood. It's one of my favorite things in the world. We got jet skied fairly bad last time we were there, and we weren't expecting it.
I mean, just to jump in, the precedent's there for it. They built a whole land out of Universal Beijing.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's weird though too, because the movie didn't do that well, but yet this show is absolutely phenomenal, like top tier stunt show. It's so weird to me, but it's fantastic, and I love it, and I like that idea.
Tracy loved it in Japan as well. She said, like, I hate the fact that she's seen something I haven't.
I wonder if the translation, not linguistically, but like the translation of the stunt show is the same over there. I wonder if they kind of do it the exact same way.
Yeah, obviously,
or they changed it per the audience.
Yeah, she's got no point of reference, has she? So yeah, interesting.
No.
The Waterworld show was my hyperfixation when I lived over there. Where I know. Anyone who follows me on Instagram definitely knows. It was where I started my photography. I borrowed one of my coworkers' like DSLR cameras, and that was the first thing I ever shot, was the Waterworld show. And then here we are now. And there's a lot of stunt people from the Hollywood show that have gone over and done the show in Japan as like kind of a
training team
exchange.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's the same show, the same character names, even like some of the same costumes, a lot of the same stunts. Really, the only difference is the stadium over there is a lot bigger as opposed to Hollywood's.
I wonder if they still make the same Tiger Woods joke, dated Tiger Woods joke that they do in Hollywood.
Gosh.
I hope so.
Dated.
Yeah.
But Waterworld I absolutely love. And also shout out to the team member out front who gave me Express for no reason, because both he and I both have the same Red Hot Chili Peppers tattoo on our forearm. So he's like, "You're cool. Go to Express."
Well, that's not no reason. That's a great reason.
That is a reason.
Well, in the world of Universal, it's no reason.
Oh, okay. I see.
You know what I mean? If I'm gonna jokingly, because our lower lot doesn't really have a theme, it's just kind of like Jurassic World and kind of like Universal Studios Hollywood, like backlot theme, which doesn't really exist anymore. Like this whole making of the movies kind of a thing, where that's what it feels like down there. There's a Panda Express down there. Just retheme everything to Panda Express, and then make Transformers a Panda Express ride, where like you get the scent of orange chicken as you like go through the kitchen, and then they like give you samples at the end of the ride.
Gabe, if you ever want to get me and Tracy out to Universal Hollywood, that Panda Express idea, Tracy, that orange chicken for her is like life itself. So you would get her over.
It's so good.
One, spicy orange chicken, fantastic. But on the other side of things, they just redid the Panda Express. They just redid it. So the value is there. They didn't get rid of it. The value is there. I even said they should have done the world's first Super Nintendo World, where you get a sample of orange chicken before you go into Super Mario Land. You know what I mean?
That's so funny.
Joking aside, I don't see them retheming from top to bottom that lower lot. Because there's Jurassic World there's The Mummy, they have Transformers Meet and Greet, and they have Transformers. I don't think realistically they're going to do a cohesive overall theme for that area, but if I wanted something to change and keep it at least semi-realistic, I think that on that lower lot, because it is that weird kind of mishmash theme, they can move the entrance to Transformers to a different side of that building potentially, and retheme that ride as like a Luigi's Mansion ride, and have that kind of as a far off extension of Super Nintendo, because it's so close in proximity to it. And I understand like there is a lot of like things in between to get it from A to B, but because it's close, because you could potentially maybe do something, it would be a nice addition to Super Nintendo, you know, even though we don't have Donkey Kong yet. You know, Luigi's Mansion would be an awesome thing, an awesome IP ride that I would love to see come to the parks.
Okay.
I will lob the softball of Simpsons Land going to Pokemon. I actually, this is a little unfair because
that's what's going to happen.
Because that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Well, not that, but like I've got a group of friends that I'm really close with that I met because of the UUOP Weekender, and we do a monthly Zoom call where we bring up a topic and I'll either debate it like we just did. We're taking turns like designing our own horror nights from top to bottom. But we did a what would you do? What would you make in your Pokemon land? And I made something that would never happen, but I'm really proud of it. So I'm going to share my idea. And this was from a couple months ago again. But so my main ride in Pokemon World would be Charmander's Evolution, family friendly. And it would be a family-based ride. So you start as Charmander, and it's a basic dark ride, like Omnimover mode. And then you get chosen by your owner, and then you battle a few foes like Bulbasaur and Squirtle and the little guys. And then like a mix of dark ride and screen effects with like water and fire and all the things that Universal does all the time. And then you spin and you evolve into Charmeleon, and now you're in like you've been sitting on like a motion base all the whole time. So now you're more like Transformers or Spider-Man kind of movements that you're getting.
That's so cool
on that. And then fight a couple more Pokemon, evolve again into Charizard. And newsflash, you've been on a Kuka arm the whole time, and now you're flying, and there's fire.
Wow.
So
that's so cool.
Yes, I had it. I already had it in a note in my phone. So I promise I didn't just come up with that in the last 12 seconds, but it will never happen, but that would be so cool.
That's a really fun idea. And, you know, it's interesting because I feel like when you're, as people who are not at Universal Creative talking about all these ideas, I feel like that it doesn't seem too far off from something Universal would do. It's something unique and different. It's like, we've done Spider-Man attraction style thing. We've done a dark ride. We've done Kuka arms. What if we put them all together and make one super ride?
Does it have screens? Yes. Does it have water effects? Yes.
So fire. Yep.
Fire, all that stuff. Yeah. The one thing that, you know, I think would be cool if Universal did, because Universal, unlike Disney, doesn't hold on to rides for a super duper long time. You know, Pirates has been alone for a long time, Haunted Mansion, all these things. Universal rotates out fairly frequently. Having a ride that is updatable, that includes everything that's been gone from the park in some holistic capacity would be awesome.
Like a great movie ride.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a great Universal ride.
But with attractions, Yeah, it would be awesome. I'd be so up for that. Jaws, Kong, Back to the Future.
Twister.
Yeah, Twister. Even going down to like Murder, She Wrote, Xena and Hercules. Like, let's go real deep cuts in there would be awesome.
If you did Hercules, you have to have the moment where he goes, disappointed! Really loud, to the sky.
I'm going to take an easy one because I feel like it may happen. So Men in Black is apparently going down for a refurb at the end of the year for quite a lengthy one. We've heard pretty strong rumours that it might not be around for much longer.
Why would they put a lot of money into it as a refurb if they're going to get rid of it?
Why did they do that with Poseidon's Fury is what I say to everyone when they go, it's not going away, they're just doing a refurb. They did exactly the same with Poseidon's Fury. So we know like the targeting system and that. Again, I think we talked about this on UUOP when you were on, Maddy, didn't we?
Yeah.
So the company that built that whole ride system, like the targeting gun system, went bust about 5 years after that attraction opened, which is why they've never overhauled that system, because they can't get someone in to come and do it who originally did it, and they're not going to pay someone else to come in and completely change it from the ground up, which is what they'd have to do, because they're not going to spend that money on an IP that's as old as it is. So I feel if they are going to do something with it, it's obviously going to be, they're going to change the whole thing. And we've already kind of talked about the IP that I feel would fit in there right now, and that is Ghostbusters. So if they change that facade to like a New York street with the hook and ladder and have like a New York deli sort of restaurant in there, you need Chinese in those takeout boxes that we don't have over here, and I always watch all American films when I see those cool Chinese takeout boxes. They're so awesome. I love it. You need Twinkies for dessert option, and then you just basically retrofit, like do what they did with Tiana, basically, is strip it all down and keep the track, but then just put everything Ghostbusters in there with a proton pack rather than a gun. And I don't think that's beyond the realms of possibility when we've already talked about how much Ghostbusters is being a presence at Universal this year.
I mean, it kind of writes itself. You know, I feel like that makes a lot of sense. And when you could even think about the story. It's like, we realized that we had to put all of you on a vehicle, so we've designed this special proton pack that everyone can use. That's on this one specially designed proton vehicle. You know, like you could hear it now happening. And I know there exists some in some capacity some Ghostbusters attraction concept art that was never built. So maybe you could take aspects of that and put it into this attraction, because that was a shooting attraction.
Right, I've got it. Right, so the next iteration of Mario Kart is you do the Ghostbusters attraction with the AR visors on, so you've got... That, again, is not beyond the realms of possibility. When they've kind of done it with Super Mario, to use that on a Ghostbusters attraction would be awesome.
I would say that it would work great. I would say if they have 2 AR attractions... that's too many AR attractions.
But they're not in the same park, though.
Oh, it's true. Two different parks.
Yeah.
You can put Transformers and Spider-Man in 2 parks opposite each other, and people will still complain, to be fair. But
I'm coming from a Universal Hollywood perspective, where we only have one park and everything would just be in there. So it's like when you go to Hollywood, it's like screen, screen. That's screen, mummy.
True.
So
that's valid.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yay.
Right, I'm going to go for a different tack. So it's something I want to discuss that, Maddy, you've experienced. Gabe, you haven't. Kelly, you've been to Universal multiple times, but have not yet experienced. I also have been since it opened and have not experienced. It has had a bumpy opening at this point. Everyone's puzzled faces have no idea what I'm talking about. I'm talking about Universal's great movie Escape.
Oh.
It's expensive.
It is, and we saw within 6 months of them doing price drops on it down to $35 a person. We talked about on UUOP before it opened that doing an escape room that is aimed at a wide spectrum of people was always going to be difficult, because you're going to have those people who've never done one before, so it needs to be relatively easy. Or you're going to get those people who are super competitive that do escape rooms all the time, where it needs to be challenging from them. And it feels like, from talking to you guys, listening to the reviews that you and Chris and all that lot did for the podcast, that they didn't really hit any of those marks. Like as I say, Maddy, you've done it. Gabe, you haven't been to Orlando since. You are coming over this year. So I want to ask your perspective of, is it something you were looking to do? And if not, why? And then Kelly, for you, obviously you've been multiple times and not done it. Why? And then Maddy, from your perspective, how do they change it to make it more palatable for people? Because it's obviously struggling.
Yeah, I think as someone who, from the perspective of somebody who doesn't live in Florida, who's coming out there, there's a couple different things. One, I didn't know about the price change, but initially I was like, that's quite a bit of money. I'm already coming out there and I'm spending money on tickets, spending money on food, spending money on drinks. I don't think I really need to spend money on an escape room. I have escape rooms at home. So for me, the draw of the IP as an escape room wasn't nearly enough. It just wasn't enough, because realistically, how much can you do from the IP to tie into an escape room? I mean, you could probably do a little bit, but it just wasn't enough to draw me in, to spend the money there, especially when there are a million other things to do at Universal Orlando Resort. And to be fair, Orlando, that isn't an escape room. So for me, escape rooms are just kind of they're fun. I enjoy them. They aren't necessarily a draw for me all the time. I'm going to go do one on the 26th of this month for somebody's birthday, but that's because it's somebody's birthday. I don't actively look out for escape rooms. And just because it's Back to the Future, Jurassic World, or whatever the last one is, it's just not enough to draw me in.
Gabe, there's only two.
It was only two?
Yeah.
Oh, my bad. Those
Oh, yeah, for us. I'm looking at our current pricing. For one person before 6 p.m. is starting at $39.99. And then post 6 p.m. for one person is $44.99. And I want to say it's peak priced. So that is like your base pay.
$40 to make me feel like I'm a dumbass is not, I'm sorry. No thanks.
Yeah.
So I think it was $50 across the board when it first opened.
I think it started at 50 when it first opened, and like a Saturday at 9 o'clock would have been even upwards of 60 or 65 bucks. I think.
That's like running in the opposite direction. Like, I don't even want to be near that thing. That's that price. That's too much.
It is a lot of money.
So first of all, Lee, this is triggering because I just put on a week-long detective camp for my students. I run our alumni summer camps at my school, and I put on a detective camp. And our culminating experience was an escape room that I designed. And I have so much respect for people who do that because I'm standing there with like locks. And I'm like, which one do I need to lock first so that I don't accidentally lock? Like it was a lot of work. It was so much fun, but it was a lot of freaking work. And so I'm a little sweaty right now. But that was just yesterday. So I love escape rooms, but I never think of an escape room of like, I don't have plans for Friday night. What can I go do with my friends? Like it is like Gabe, you said, it's something that I've done. I don't know that I've ever actually done one that wasn't a birthday party or like a team building thing for work or something like that. It's something I want to do. It's something that when I heard it announced, I was like, immediately my first trip after this is open, I'm making this a priority. I'm scheduling that in. So I live in St. Louis, so I don't get to go super often, but I'm from South Florida and that's where my family still is. So I go during the summer and then I usually make it out once or twice a year other than that. But it just has not been a priority for me the last couple of, the price is a barrier. I've heard great things about the bar there. Yes. So I almost went in there last time I was there.
Gabe, go to the bar. You don't need to buy a ticket.
I'll definitely go to the bar. Oh, dude, you don't have to convince me anything to go to any bar. I'm down.
The popcorn drink is so good.
Yeah, it's not exactly a ringing endorsement, is it, when you're telling people to go to the bar over the escape room?
Yeah, you know what? You're not wrong.
Yeah. And again, so I love escape rooms. Jurassic Park is one of my favorite IPs out there. So I would love to do the Jurassic World side of it. And I like Back to the Future too. It's just between the cost and the time, not getting to go to the parks very often. I think it would be a fun experience, but there's so much that I get that I want to do every time that I go. It's just not been a priority for me. I'll do it. I think I'll do it eventually, especially if it isn't going to be around for very long. I'll make a point to do it. But I just heard it was a fun experience, like a fun experience. But again, people were just kind of meh about it. And then for, I'm, again, being a teacher, I'm on a pretty tight budget. That's just not where I'm going to spend my money when I go down there. I'll do it eventually. But again, I thought it would be a huge priority for me and it just never makes it up the list.
Yeah. Before I let Maddy go, because obviously she's the only one of us that's done it, from my perspective, I run a Universal podcast. Like, why is it something that I haven't done? Tickets actually went on sale the last day we were there in Orlando in 2022. And I actually thought it was open. So we were like, oh, I'm going to do it without a doubt. I don't care. That money will come from somewhere because I want to go and check it out before I heard everyone's reviews. And my issue with it, yes, at $50 a piece, it's expensive. And then you chucked in with randos, like who the hell are you going to get in there with is a bit odd. But from listening to you guys talk about it and then other podcasts that I've heard review it and stuff, it seems to be that calling it an escape room was probably a bad choice because, Maddy, I'm sure you can talk a bit more in a minute. That's not really what it is. It's more a walkthrough experience than an escape room itself. I'm probably on the same line as Kelly. We'll probably do it eventually, but it's not a priority right now at all because there is so much other stuff out there that I don't feel I need to spend another $100 to go and do something. Actually, I would have to do both of them. Being who I am and what I do, I would have to do both of them. So that's $200 that we've got to spend. And when I'm already up in arms over the Premium Scream event this year, I can't spend $200 on an escape room and then all over that.
I have a question real quick because I do have a comment. I'm sorry, Maddy, before getting to you.
No, you're good.
Does the experience include actors like in it in any capacity? No actors. Okay, here's the thing that I have an issue with then, because the price point, even at the lowered price point, I've done experiences out here in California that are escape rooms plus actors plus immersive experience for equal to that or a little bit more. And the question then becomes, is this experience going to live up to the experience that I had at these other things when I know that it's not it's not, when I say immersive experience, I mean like fully top to bottom, dealing with characters, dealing with more aspects than just the puzzles. Is it going to live up to that? If not, then I'm not going to waste my money. You know, in just to kind of give a bit of perspective, I was looking it up while you guys were talking. I've done two things that to me are comparable, or if not, comparable in the sense that it would be in the same conversation. You know, there's one thing out here called Crossroads Escape Game, which is an escape room thing. They have something called the Weeping Witch, which is includes an actor, and for that it is $40, and that's one actor in there, and it's a monster, so you know there are scares included. And there's another one that I've done recently called not recently, I think it was about 3 or 4 years ago. It was called Murder Co, and it was under Black Market Escape Rooms, and this one was like probably one of the most intense like almost like haunted house / escape rooms I've done, where it is full of actors, full of interactions, and this one was $70, but how many interactions and things that you're doing are unique to that experience. And for that, like, you choose a murderer that you want to watch murder somebody, and then in some inexplicable decision, the door gets unlocked, and then you have to go into the room where the murder just happened, and then you get locked in there, and it's room from room to room to room, and like you find actors hid in places, like the murderer comes after you, and then you have to go hide.
That's
and
so cool.
All incorporated into the idea of having to escape. At one point, one of the keys was down a drain, and when you put your hand in there, it sounded like the garbage disposal turns on. Like, when we were doing that moment, like, I was like, I ain't doing that. I'm not doing that. No, thank you. Whoever, I forgot who I was with, but they put their hand in, and the murderer, who we happened to choose was a clown, popped out of the door to that room with a fake gun and shot it off into the air, and everyone nearly crapped themselves because you're not expecting somebody to scare you in this high tension moment.
Yeah.
And for me, if I could have that much fun and pay that amount of money, and I've been paying the same amount of money for something less than, it doesn't make sense for me.
Yeah. On that, Kenneth has done a ton of escape rooms here in Orlando and like across Florida. And he was talking about one after we did the Universal escape room. It was a horror themed one. And part of the escape room was you walked up a staircase and then you slid down a slide into just an abyss. Like you couldn't see what was at the bottom. That I think is an escape room. And 2 points that I have thought of when y'all have been talking. I want to say there is still an AP discount on the escape room, whether it's all the time or just sometimes. So depending, you can potentially get money taken off of it.
I thought the pass holder discount was only available if you did a big group one.
It might be. There was a view details that I didn't click on when I was just using the app because the app crashed.
I'm sure that pass holder thing is only if you book a private, whatever it's called.
Which, like, honestly, if after doing both of them, I would do it. Like, if I could get 6 people together that I know, that I trust, and then also get a discount on top of it, that is what I would do.
Okay.
As opposed to paying this base price and then getting put in with random people that I don't know and I don't know how to work with, because I don't want to yell at them.
Yeah.
Like I yelled at
I'll yell at some random ass people. You kidding me?
But they were interesting. I'm very grateful that we got to do both of them. It was all funniness. Is like, it was a very fun experience because of the people that I was with. And just the hullabaloo and shenanigans that we got into while we were inside. And I was one of the ones that came at it from the experience of never having done a proper escape room. Okay. I want to. I think I'd be pretty bad at it, but I want to. But like Kenneth had done multiple. Jillian is like the escape room master. And then I want to say at the time, Chris and Alexa hadn't done one either. Or maybe like they'd done one. I can't remember. But it was interesting. We did the Jurassic Park one first, or the Jurassic World one first, and then did the Back to the Future one a couple of weeks later. I personally like the Jurassic World one the most out of the two options. And if I were to rename it, I don't think I would do anything involving the word escape. It's an adventure. Because you're not really escaping anything. Like, yeah, the dinosaur is following you and you're trying to get away from the dinosaur. But in the terms of escape, the door is going to open no matter what. Right. Because there's a group behind you.
Yeah, it's not really.
Pumping people through so fast.
Not escaping a room.
And
so if you don't finish,
escape room would be.
Yeah, if you don't finish the puzzle, they're going to make some excuse and they're going to push you through anyways.
Yeah, and that's the issue with it, is it? Like I said, I think it's been marketed wrong.
Yeah. So it's definitely much more of an adventure, like a puzzle adventure or a movie adventure, whatever you want to call it, but not so much marketing it as an escape room as it is just an adventure experience. And I think experience would also just be like a good word to use.
Because I don't want it to fail. I want it to do well. When they announced it, it was like, brilliant, something else to do, because I love the mini golf in there. It's overpriced, but it's awesome. You know, you need something else in City Walk other than restaurants and shops. So when we heard that they were bringing this there, you're like, fantastic, there's something extra to do on a night when the parks are closed, brilliant. And then you hear all the reviews of it and you go, yeah, I can wait.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a bummer, honestly.
Yeah, it is.
I think you're rightly. I think on the surface, it's like, oh, that's a really cool idea. Yeah. But then when it's not executed to the way that you're expecting something to be executed to, then you're kind of left wanting more and left disappointed, which inevitably doesn't fare well for the experience.
And that leads back to, how do you make an escape room challenging for everyone? It was never going to be. You can't, not for the amount of the different range of ages and abilities of people going to somewhere like Universal Orlando. It was always going to be a huge undertaking unless somehow you inbuilt a way to change the difficulty on it depending on. So marketing as an experience rather than an escape room probably would have made it very, very different.
See, I think the issue is, and I may be the only one here, I think the problem that they're running into is actually trying to make it available to everybody, like making it accessible to everybody, making it so that anybody could walk in and do something. I think that is where the failure actually lies for this particular experience. In my opinion, what I think would have been more successful is, because they have two experiences, one is not hard, one is easy, one is more difficult.
Brilliant.
And then you have people.
That's where I was going to go.
Absolutely.
Then you have the ability to choose, okay, if I'm less experienced, I'll go with the Jurassic World one. If I want something more hard, I'll go with the Back to the Future one. And then you have that, but then also treat it like it's an escape room.
Yeah.
Allow people to try to escape, and then you have it tiered in time, because the exact same thing, it's timed like any other escape room. Allow it to be that way. You have a timer. People have 45 minutes to get out and figure out all the things, and then that's it.
Yeah.
Don't make it anything more than it is, because once you do that, once you're like, oh, we're Universal, we have to make it unique and different and all, it's like, no, stick to the basics.
Yeah.
And then you have a winner.
It also wasn't very there weren't physical things most of the time that we were like touching or moving. It was like, push these buttons or pull out this little thing and then push it back in.
So
I want to say between the two, the only physical movement we did was taking a canister out of one hole and then putting it into a different hole.
It's escape room light. It's escape room light.
Yeah.
And that's, again, when you're pushing people through that fast, you can't have someone come in and take 20 minutes to reset every knob you've moved and put this block back where that was and take this chain off the wall. Like, you can't do that.
They definitely built it with the idea that it was going to be busier than I think it actually is. And right now, if they were to like close it for a week and revamp it, I think they should do it as you are booking a 40-minute experience. You have the whole thing to like, you have that whole themed to yourself. Yeah. And someone can go in and change the props after you because the next group is going to go in. Because I don't think it's that busy. They also put it, and I know this was probably just spacing wise, but that upper lot of City Walk nowadays is dead. Because I think like, you never see anyone going
because because of where it is, I don't think a lot of people even know there's anything up there.
Yeah.
Unless you happen to go up to Antojitos or of kind of going that backside round to the Dead Coconut Club and go, there's a path round there. What's round there? I don't think people know it exists. It's the same as up where Bend the Bow is and up there. That's a place that doesn't get a lot of traffic because I don't think people realise it's there.
Yeah.
We never went past Antojitos, honestly. And the reason why is because they didn't serve breakfast.
Yeah.
And I know they're wanting more advertising, trying to get more people in because they had that massive advertisement outside of the tribute store.
Yeah.
That's like, you can't get out of the tribute store until you've like it, and with a team member there that I think actually like you could buy tickets right there. Yeah. Like you could not get out of the tribute store without like interacting with this giant sign poster in your face.
Yeah. Please come to the escape rooms. We really need people to pay.
Yeah. But I know Chris and Alexa said they went up to the bar and they were up there for a couple of hours recently, like within the last 6 months, and they said they barely saw anybody come out of it. And look, I'm not saying this from a point of view where I want it to fail, because of course I don't. Yeah. But it worries me that if they don't do something about it soon, that they will just close it.
Here's the hard question, is that if you are spending a lot of money on a vacation to Universal Orlando or Orlando in general, are you going to pay money to do an escape room, even though it's themed to a movie that you may like? Are you willing to do that? I think the general answer is no. I don't think people who are coming and spending thousands of dollars on a vacation are like, oh, we'll spend another $50 per person to do an escape room that we probably have something equal to, if not better, back home.
Yeah.
That's the hard question.
It's also, if you're looking for things to do in Orlando and you're not an annual pass holder for Universal, you also have to pay for parking to get into City Walk.
Very true.
Like,
yes.
Most people are going to go to Disney Springs because you don't have to pay for parking and there's things to do inside. Yes, the VR experience at Disney really dipped for COVID and then they just got rid of the whole thing. But these extra experiences are fun and it does bring people in a sense, because we're opening up more experiences like the mini golf, like, the ever-changing Dead Coconut Club. But I don't think it was the right, maybe not the right thing, but definitely not marketed the right way.
Absolutely.
And if we want repeatability, because the puzzles don't change, the difficulty doesn't change, it's all still the same. If we want repeatability, put 2 new movies in. Yeah. I would go back right now if there were two new movies in. Like,
yeah,
I would. It was fun. I really enjoyed it. Lindsay really enjoyed it. But I've already done them both. So why go back?
Yeah.
I already know how to do the puzzles. I know how it ended. There's no surprise factor anymore. So put 2 new movies in and I will pay the $35 to go again.
But that's it. The biggest issue is the cost, isn't it? Right. So it can't cost them a lot to keep those open. So half the price, charge $25. You've got 8 people going through. You're making, get my math right, 200 $200, right, for every group going through. So would you rather have 10 groups going through a day, paying half price, that are potentially going to go in the bar and buy drinks and stuff after, or half that amount of people paying twice as much who aren't going to go into the bar and buy drinks afterwards. It's about getting people in there in the first place. So for me, the biggest way you're going to get that is by dropping the price, because I think that's what putting 90% of people off are going to look at it. Oh, that's cool. $50 a pop? Yeah, I don't think so. Half the price. You're still going to get people through and then potentially make money off drinks and stuff afterwards.
Or even sweeten the pot, because I think, Lee, you're making a valid point about, like, people are going to buy drinks afterwards anyway.
Yeah.
Like, once you sweeten the pot by saying, like, okay, well, if you go to the bar, drinks are full price, but if you go through the experience, maybe you get like 50% off your first drink or something along those lines.
Parking, like you can get
validate parking.
Brilliant.
Yep.
That's brilliant.
Something to sweeten the pot.
Right. One thing that Disney did is they noticed that no one was buying tickets to their water parks just on their own anymore. So I want to say it's starting this summer.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Is it next summer? Sorry, Lindsay's next to me. Starting next summer, if you are staying on property, when you check in, you can go to the water park for free. It's like part of your thing. So add it into your hotel package.
Oh my God, that's so smart. So smart.
Now, like maybe add a couple dollars to the hotel package to, make it worth it. But just getting people in the door, getting people talking about it again and being able to experience it, add it into the hotel package. You can go do this thing if you stay on property.
Or even if it's half price. Yeah, even if it's half price, give you 50% discount for staying on site.
Any positive news about it, because if somebody goes and does it for free or half price, they're going to be, that was great, that was fantastic, and then that word of mouth goes across everybody else. It's the same thing.
So back to that group of friends back to that. So there's six of us in that group of friends that I was talking about earlier. So when this came out and it was like you could book it private for 6, we were like, this is perfect. There's 6 of us. We'll do this. Then the reviews came out, thought about the price, things like that. And so here's like speaking to it's what you're getting for the price, because in last September, when the 6 of us took our Horror Nights trip together, we chose not to do the escape room and instead chose to do a Volcano Bay day. So Volcano Bay is $80. So I said yes to $80 and no to $45 for the escape room. Obviously, like one's a timed short thing and one
Perceived
is the
value.
full day in a water park.
And that's what it comes down to.
The perceived value of it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's sad because it doesn't feel like it would be a big fix, but yet they seem unwilling to do it.
Yeah.
Like, just watch it fail rather than actually try and do something to actively change people's perception of what it is.
It might be one of those situations where it's more cost beneficial to them to close it than it is to spend the money to fix it with what you have to do in order to get it to a point that becomes a normal escape room. Because based on what Maddy kind of is describing, it sounds like the basis of the experience is fairly light in terms of its interaction with its guests. And in order to change that, it would take a lot.
Yeah.
It would take a lot. Because it's ingrained into what it is.
It's an interactive, so obviously taking the theme out of it, it's an interactive Horror Nights house, effectively, but without the horror.
Yeah.
So
and
lame.
That is something that, that's something that we have talked about too on Rush of Fear is like, we did, I can't remember what, not sanatorium, but
there repository.
Was that. Yes. And I've heard really great things about it, but add it into Horror Nights. Do that in the Men in Black studio. Like do an extra add-on thing in the Men in Black studio for Horror Nights. Something that it's only going to be around during this period of time. It is what it is. But now we have so many other little Universal iterations, like Earl the Squirrel. Do an Earl the Squirrel holiday themed escape room.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That would be awesome.
Do a Mardi Gras King Gator escape room. Like, Kelly, you're on mute.
Yeah, I said I did an elf one year around Christmas. It was so fun.
Yeah. And that's so fun. Like, instead of having one that is just set in stone in City Walk that has no repeatability, make it a limited time thing. And then maybe you'll get more traction. I do think it's a great idea as an added little fun and exciting thing for Universal. And it will bring people, very similar to the tribute stores. People now know we do these tribute stores. They know they're only going to be around for a very set period of time. People are traveling to come see them because they're excited and they're never going to get to see it again. So do that with this escape room style experience, and maybe you'll get a bit more traction than an actual set attraction in City Walk itself.
I think rotating the theme out seems to be a fairly general thing that everyone has said here across the board.
Yeah.
And because the repeatability now is just not good. And based on whatever season it is, do something along with that. Because if you get a ticket to Horror Nights, it's like, oh, you bought a ticket to Horror Nights, you get half off this experience over in City Walk.
Yeah.
And one thing that just keeps coming to my mind, and I want to bring it up, and I know we've been going on for a very long time here, but one thing I want to bring up that I thought kind of, at least to me, kind of spoke along the same lines is Scary Farm for 3 years had this extra upcharge experience called Trapped. Trapped was essentially Escape Room Light, where you had to do a couple things here and there inside the experience, but it also included actors, and some rooms you had to eat something.
Yeah, was that the thing where you ended up in a coffin?
Yeah, that one Nikki got put in a coffin. I got put into like a freezer drawer, and it was closed. And then I had to roll out of it because there was like a trap door inside that to get out. And then like 1 year there was a room where, out of context, it's so weird. 1 year there was a room that was filled with jars of pee, and there was a guy in there who said, I've been cleansing myself my entire life, and you come in here from the outside dirty world, and you need it cleansed too.
Oh.
And he reaches into a cabinet with the little Dixie cups, and he gives them to you, and he goes, you have to cleanse yourselves. And basically it's a yellow liquid, and you're like, I have to drink this dude's pee. And they're like, the cups are warm, and you're like, I'm getting kind of gaggy thinking about it now. Essentially it was just apple cider vinegar. Like, that's all it was.
Well,
like,
still,
it's still gross, but all it was that. But under the pretense of like, it's this dude's pee, it's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. Maddy, you were moving your cheeks back and forth. I thought you were like pretending mouthwashy thing with the pee. That's why it's too much in my mind. No, so it's like this little interactive stuff here and there, and it was Escape Room Light because you had to do something in order to get out to each room. If Universal did something along those lines where it was a step up from what a typical Halloween Horror Nights experience is, where it's fairly passive, where you're walking through a haunted house, while including the light escape room aspects of what they're doing now, I think that would be that step up that they need in order to make it unique and different. But like we said, it unfortunately does have to appeal to the masses. So that's where that change in theme comes in.
Absolutely.
Horror Nights, it's going to be the horror people. Christmas, Earl the Squirrel, family friendly, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of where I think would be kind of cool for them to do.
Yeah. I would like to point out that Gabe said he complained that the Horror Nights houses at Orlando were claustrophobic, and yet has no issue getting shoved in a freezer drawer.
One, I would like to say that I never said it was a bad thing. I just said that they were, And when I got put in that freezer drawer, the only reason why I chose to do that one because it was easier for me to get into that one than it was the coffin.
Right. I would tell you now, if that was me, I would freak out. So to put it into perspective, I've done Mission Space once. Mm-hmm. I said to the guy next to me with his son, I said, if I freak out, just know I'm quite claustrophobic. And I was fine. I had something to concentrate on. But as soon as it stopped, I was like, get that door open right now because I need to be out.
That is the worst ride in history.
And then I queued to get on it again and was like proper hyperventilating in the line. I'm like, and I ducked out and Tracy went on it on her own.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of that ride. I mean, we went on it once when we went. Yeah. But I mean, it's like I did it. I could say I did it. I'm done.
Exactly.
Don't really need to do that thing again.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I think that was fun. I enjoyed it. We did far more Horror Nights than I expected.
I mean, are we really shocked? I'm not.
Probably not. No.
I'm really not.
I feel like the next group of people that you have on may not talk as much about Horror Nights. But
yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
Cool.
Honestly, this conversation has been a ton of fun because we don't get to sit down and record with each other all the time.
No.
So it's really fun to hear everyone's perspective and be able to kind of see each other. Well, we could see each other. The people who are listening can't see us. I like being able to see everybody's faces here after listening to everyone's show and kind of combine our talents here and to talk about all the things that we love when it comes to just themed entertainment. So I appreciate everybody kind of coming together and bringing everything that they love to the table. It's honestly awesome. And
across 4 time zones, that's what's happening right now.
I woke up at 7 a.m. people.
That way, is it? I don't know.
No, but I honestly had a blast, and I think this is about the moment that everyone's going to tell you exactly where you can tune into their shows, because everybody is covering something different and there's something valuable for each one of these shows.
Well
so
said.
For me, it is the Theme Park Duo podcast. It's me and my wife, Nikki. The absolute ridiculousness that you're going to subscribe for is usually my wife with spicy takes. But I mean, we like having fun talking about a lot of SoCal experiences, and you can find our podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts, Apple Podcasts, your podcatcher of choice, anything like that. You can always find us at Theme Park Duo on all social media platforms. And you can also visit our website, themeparkduo.com, for any interesting and fun experiences that we're doing out here in Southern California.
And the Taste of Universal covers food options. We are dedicated to helping everyone find out about the delicious food across the properties, both the theme parks, the hotels, City Walk, everything like that. We've got people on our show that bring different perspectives as far as if you're vegan or vegetarian, if you have dairy allergies like myself, or allergies in general, gluten-free like Kayla and Tracy, who eats just about everything. We
Unless it's got cilantro in it.
Food news and topic-specific episodes. But you can find us on all the usual podcast platforms, and we are on Facebook at Taste of Universal, on Instagram at Taste of Universal Podcast, all one word. And Shelby is on Instagram. She runs Universal Orlando Vegans. And then if you want to comment or email us at all, we've got an email set up at thetasteofuniversal@gmail.com.
You should have an Angry Lee section of your show where Lee just moans and groans about foods that are not accurate.
It's just the shepherd's pasty pie.
A clip of the week, clip of the month. What is
Lee's angry clip of the week?
Yeah. I am Maddy from Rush of Fear. We talk specifically about Halloween Horror Nights. We are mostly covering Halloween Horror Nights in Orlando, but we do dip our toes chit-chatting about different things that happen over in Hollywood. And we have been to other haunts as well. So sometimes we'll talk about those, because why not? Horrors for everyone.
Exactly.
Yeah, you can find us at Rush of Fear on all podcast platforms. Spotify usually has little things at the bottom where we like to hear from you guys, which is really fun. On social media across the board, we are Rush of Fear Pod. That is the POD at the end. We have an email account, rushofear21@gmail.com. And currently we're running a listener submission. Check out our Instagram to see all the things. You can be on our podcast, which is really cool. And it's me, Kenneth, and Michelle. You should definitely come hang out with us,
Absolutely.
especially now that we're in announcement season.
Exactly. And I guess the podcast that started it all, I am Lee. We are the unofficial Universal Orlando podcast. We have been doing this for far too long at this point. It is myself, it is Chris, it is Maddy's co-host Michelle, it is my wife and Kelly's co-host Tracy. We cover everything that Universal has to offer, Universal Orlando specifically. You can find us on every podcast platform that is out there. YouTube, which these guys didn't mention, but I know also Taste of Universal and Rush of Fear are both available on our YouTube channel. You can find us on social media across the board at UUO Podcast. You can email us at podcast@uuopodcast.com. And honestly, we'd love you to get in touch, but go and follow and listen to all of us, because we all bring something unique to the table, and expanding your knowledge of Universal Orlando and theme parks in general.
Well, honestly, Lee, I have to get a little mushy here right at the end of the episode, because I want to thank you for, bringing us all together under this one umbrella, because, you and I have known each other for a good long time now. And I like the fact that, our friendship has then led to me and Nikki knowing Maddy and Kelly and everybody else on their shows, and just expanding our view of awesome people. Because this is the best part about themed entertainment, the best part about Halloween Horror Nights, the best part of really anything that falls under that umbrella is the community.
Absolutely.
And the more people we build in that community who are awesome, it makes the experiences that more awesome. So, I wanted to say thank you and be a little bit mushy about that part, because the community is what makes it special.
Yay!
Hey, 99% of people in my life are because of this podcast, so I owe a lot to it.
So us three?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that is the end of the podcast.
Make sure to follow all the podcasts and our network on all socials at UUOP Network.
Thank you guys so much for listening. And from the four of us, you can rest now.